Everyone's always talking about a loneliness epidemic, right? Why are people so lonely? Well, the reality is that for a lot of people want to be alone, okay? They curate their lives in a way to where they have very few relationships. And what I realize is that people who say that they're happy to be alone, or they kind of hide behind these ideas of like, oh, you can't trust people, that's why I'm alone, etc., etc. These people are deeply insecure. They're deeply insecure. They don't feel worthy. They have low self-esteem, right? And what you'll find if you do happen to enter into a relationship with these people is not that they have this profound sense of peace, right? From this long life of being alone, and they're sturdy within themselves, and they have this sense of inner peace and inner confidence that's just unshakable, and they know how to move without the world. No, you're going to find that these are people who are just dealing with so many unhealed wounds. These are people who refuse to see themselves, so they can't see you. They don't want to be seen, right? And you'll find when you're interacting with these type of people is that they are very competitive, right? Very competitive, very comparative. In relationships, they don't really know how to engage with people in a healthy way, right? And I think in part that could be due to either arrested development or just a lack of experiences in regards to socialization, depending on their life path. And so I think that those are some of the more complex nuances that we seldom address when we say, oh my God, there's a loneliness epidemic. Like I just seen another video with some, I don't know, she was a speaker or something of that nature on CBS. And, we keep hearing these conversations about like loneliness and, it being an epidemic. But for a lot of people, the reality is that it's a choice, I think in terms of, selectivity, and again, that's a whole nother nuance, and it's complex in terms of who you let in your life. Of course, we're selective, but I think, it's lazy thinking to say that, people have high standards or anything like that, because that's just not true. For a lot of people, to be honest, they're just not that conscious. They're not like consciously weeding people out who don't fit their standards. Are we superficial? Yes. I think that could be, the heading for the article, like, the rise in superficialities and how this leads to fewer connections. But I think when we talk about loneliness, it's because people don't feel like they measure up anymore. You'll find that when you meet people who really kind of embrace this idea of, just being alone and being this kind of like lone wolf, and they have no interest in friendships and things like that. It's not because they're strong and, they are just that type of being. It's because they are deeply insecure and oftentimes feel very inadequate.